So today we are going to talk about, are you worthwhile?
Mm.
Um, Maybe unpack that a little bit to use some Christian vernacular.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do that, but I'll
Yeah,
try.
that's
I'll
all
give
right.
it my best. We are the Old Fashioned Dad podcast, seeking to love dads through the person and work of Jesus Christ, entering into tough conversations on faith, God's calling, marriage, parenting, sex, all while enjoying good whiskey. I'm Christian Bringoff.
And I'm Christian Harris.
Thanks for joining us.
What do we say? We're gonna start these episodes talking about a little whiskey, and then
Sure,
what's the topic today?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I did want to kind of celebrate any successes from the day, check in, and honestly, that was like some of my stuff. I was like, man, I didn't give my kids away. I built something. And then I wanted to rant for a little bit about my kids because I just felt appropriate. COVID-19's here. I'm in a billion of quarantine. So it just felt right to rant a little bit.
Yeah, they all blur together. I didn't know. Is it what day is it's Wednesday, right? Yeah.
I think we're technically in one full week of official quarantine. It
That
feels
week was the longest month I've ever had.
Oh my gosh, it feels like it's been a year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Actually getting out to see you today was that was an amazing date.
Yeah, I mean, a little 5 minutes of getting out, some sunshine. You get to see
Holy
someone else.
smokes. Yeah, you were getting a little sweat sesh going on with the doing some cardio in your garage. I mean, wow.
Trying to, yeah, little
That,
stationary bike
that
action.
was great. Next time I'll comb my hair if I come over and see you.
I literally, like 10 minutes before I saw you, I was in sweatpants and my robe, so which I'm back
Perfect.
in right now.
Are you back? I'm in day 3 of these sweatpants right now.
Yeah,
It's pretty funky. Okay, so let's see. Whiskey. Yeah, we want to talk whiskey because everybody, if you're not a dad, but you are a whiskey lover, uh, we want to at least talk about some whiskey before we bore you with dad stuff. So today we are drinking High Peaks Distilling. It's called Night Spirit Bourbon Whiskey, and they are located up in New York. Whereabouts in New York? Lake George. And I am not super familiar with New York. I got a friend in upstate area, so I don't know if that means Lake George is an upstate, but I suppose I could Google it, but that would take a lot of time. Um,
the Google machine.
yeah,
So
right, yeah.
laborious.
I don't know how to goggle this thing, but it's in New York. So, anywho, what do you think of the whiskey so far? Before I jump into some of the stuff.
Sure, it's
Yeah, there you go. Get a healthy sip.
it's whiskey. It's got a little smokiness to it, but not too much,
It's
which is
whiskey.
good because I don't really like the smokiness. What?
No,
Making fun of me?
I like one of your main tasting notes. It's whiskey.
It's whiskey. Yeah, I've determined that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could kind of pick that out.
Yes,
If you had
the
said it's wine and it tastes like vodka, I'd be like, oh, okay, Christian.
yes, the main note I sense is whiskey.
The main note you
I
sense
like
is
it. I
whiskey.
like it, but I'm not.
Okay.
I don't have a super discerning palate, so
Hopefully after maybe like 9 or 10 of these episodes, you'll be able to kind of discern more on a good bourbon versus a good single malt versus an
hopefully,
Irish whiskey. Hopefully,
yeah, yeah.
hopefully. Okay, so for those of you out there that are maybe interested in picking this up, I don't know if you can find it outside of New York. Maybe you can find it on the East Coast. I'm a little unclear on that one, but that has to do with their distribution and whatnot. So 92 proof. It's coming in at, so 46% alcohol. Do you feel is it hot for you, Christian?
No, I mean not for being that high of proof. No, I mean surprisingly, it's. I'd imagine with my experience, typically you get up to this and it can be a little burny, a little raw, but this goes down pretty smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start getting in the above the 90s region, especially getting closer to 100, you start feeling some heat. But yeah, they did a nice job with this one. The finish is actually pretty mellow, in my opinion. It kind of it's not really long. It just kind of hangs out with you for a little bit, and then it's it's gone.
Mhm.
Some of the notes that I got off of it were toffee and vanilla.
Okay.
So I'm kind of
Yes.
curious if you take another sip of it again, if you'll get some of those notes. But you got to let it hang out on your palate.
If I'm being honest, I
Don't
don't
get
I
it.
don't I don't know.
Not getting it. I liked your just the audience can't see obviously, but I really liked your thinking face while you were sipping that. It was really good, like sipping thinking face. I appreciated
Good,
that.
good. The main experience there was the alcohol evaporating off my tongue.
Ah,
So it's always
got it.
a fun feeling when you get into these higher proofs.
I thought you were gonna say the main tasting note you got was whiskey.
I already used that line.
Oh, okay, got it. Um, some of the notes that I get, a couple of other notes, um, is caramel and some bread notes. So
Bread. Okay.
bread, yeah, maybe a little sourdough-ish. What else can I tell you about this? Everybody that is interested in the whiskey from High Peaks Distilling, the Night Spirit, they have three different kinds of expressions, but the Night Spirit is one, Cloud Splitter's another, and then the other one is Sugar Moon, which is very sugary, but it goes well as a mixer. This particular whiskey, Night Spirit, is aged in European oak sherry casks. So I think that is fairly worthwhile. So, oh, it won an award in 2019. So I
What
guess
kind of
50.
award?
Yeah, there's a lot of whiskey awards out there. The one that really, really is kind of the top whiskey award to get that you can really tout is the World Whiskey Competition that's held in San Francisco every year. If you get that, that's like an Oscar for whiskey. Um, but there's a lot of other smaller awards out there, and this one happens to be the 50 best bourbons, and it looks like it took home bronze in 2019. So, I mean, they're doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing something right. I mean, I keep reaching for it, and actually, the bottle's almost gone.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I mean, that's
It says something to the guy who has quite a few options at his fingertips.
I do have a few options at my fingertips. The back of this bottle says slight caramel taste and a velvety mellow finish. I mean, poetry right there. Just poetry. Poetry.
Nice.
So
Well,
that's the whiskey, everybody. High Peaks Distilling. Looks like here we are jumping into what we're going to talk about today. Um, you want to introduce the topic there, Christian?
sure. So today we are going to talk about, are you worthwhile?
Mm.
Um, Maybe unpack that a little bit to use some Christian vernacular.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do that, but I'll
Yeah,
try.
that's
I'll
all
give it
right.
my best.
Yeah.
Um, so initially, when I was thinking about topics that we could talk about as men, um, I think that worth is a very important but broad topic, and I think a lot of men, fathers, determine their worth based upon their accomplishments, and determine their worth based upon subjectively how well they are doing. And um, I think there's more men out there that wrestle with fathers that, that's kind of who we're talking to, but men in general, but fathers specifically, wrestle with anxiety and depression that I think is pretty connected to worth. I think that um, I, I don't know if I can't remember if I mentioned in the last episode, I don't think men do a very good job. Fathers, husbands don't do a very good job of reflecting on emotions. That includes myself, and I think you would probably echo some of those same sentiments, Christian. But I think that this idea of worth is kind of a pretty foreign concept, and so I thought it'd be worthwhile. I don't know how much into the weeds we'll get into it today, but it could warrant another episode or something like that. But that's kind of what I was thinking when I was kind of coming up with the topic. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions that that topic could go. I mean, when I originally, was kind of looking over the suggested topics, what came to mind is kind of the the grander sense of it in this, like our husbands, our dads, our men is masculinity have worth in society.
Mm,
I don't know if that's really what you're thinking, or I could take it to the granular level of worth within the family or as dads or
yeah.
whatever. I don't know what direction you want to take it.
Whew, man, like if I could flip a coin right now, that'd be good. What, maybe we take it in the direction of worth is like dads. I think that was that the first one you were talking about there.
Yeah, I mean the as kind of the big picture view of our men disposable, if you will, in society where it seems like it largely is, or is there, do we find that we have value in the family, in our family?
Mm.
Um, I don't know if that in
Yeah,
the impersonal versus personal, the societal versus the family structure.
yeah. No, I think this is a good direction to go, and likely we'll have to spend some more time on another podcast, probably addressing some of this. But I do think this issue of fathers being disposable, as kind of tertiary within the family system is kind of a significant issue. Uh, some of it I think is kind of self-inflicted by dads, and the other part is I think it's kind of a reputation that it's hard for fathers to get out from, at least societally and culturally here in America. I think that I don't know if you would agree, but I think for a long time, dads have been kind of seen like Homer Simpson. Um, that it's always, he has the best intentions, but he's kind of a dum dum, and it's his wife that really kind of, the mom that really kind of keeps everything together, and he's just kind of there for kind of comedic relief, and but he's not really going to add too much to the development of children. He's not really going to add too much to uh, the family system. He's going to end up maybe it's probably better if he just kind of stays in his corner, but it's always kind of the mom, the mother, and then again nothing against mothers. Mothers are very valuable, but he he's kind of just a kind of a dummy. But I think fathers are starting to come out of that um, reputation. But I don't know. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I think just the wording for that is a little weird for me. So like, I'm kind of thinking like, what is at the heart of what we're trying to get at? And I'm kind of thinking another way to phrase that would be like, are
Sure.
dads valuable? Are they necessary?
Mm, mm,
Um, and I think larger pop culture says they're not. You start seeing more. It could be totally anecdotal. I don't have any numbers, but people that are getting in vitro and they're single, like
mm,
they don't have a husband in mind, they just want a kid. you
mm.
know um I mean, you mentioned the Simpsons, and like I think even further back, like Married with Children was like,
Oh
yeah, you
yeah.
got a borderline abusive and really stupid dad, while everyone else, and so yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. But I mean, you kind of get into it. I mean, you're in the counseling world, and
Yep.
the reality is like no one has mommy issues, everyone has daddy issues. Like
Everybody does.
there's something, like you said, it's not that mothers or women aren't important, but there's something I think spiritually significant about the role of fathers that can't be replicated, can't be uh, can't be taken out of the equation, and not have serious repercussions in someone's life.
Yeah, no, I love how you, I love how you said that. You know, nobody has mommy issues, but everybody has daddy issues. And I think if you remember going to Mars Hill, like there was like one statistic that I think Driscoll would say from the pulpit a lot of times, and you know, it was like 50% of kids or something like that go to bed without a go to bed without a father every night.
Right. Shocking.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I'm guessing that those statistics have not changed a whole lot. You know, if at the very least they've stayed the same, but probably they've gone up would be my guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, being in the mental health field, what I end up seeing a lot is uh, people, especially adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s, coming to my office, working through issues of anxiety and depression that are attached to um, identity, uh, and oftentimes because when they grew up, they had a father who was he either was there and just wasn't emotionally or relationally available, um, or he wasn't physically, emotionally, and relationally available. Like he was just not in their life altogether.
Sure.
Um,
I mean,
and
absent. I mean, either whether physically or emotionally, they're absent fathers.
correct, yeah, yeah, and so uh, uh, boys and girls, you know, all grown up, men and women, um, they have more, I would say, stories about what they didn't get from their fathers or what they did get that wasn't good from their dads, and they're still working through. But I've got, I don't know, at least 7 years worth of client testimony that talks about the significance that dads play in a in people's lives. And
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of a hard. I would be hard pressed to think that anybody that's listening to this would argue with that fact.
Sure.
Um, I don't know. There
Well,
might be some,
right.
but
Well, it's not like it's a derogatory, like men are more important. It's just that I think there's something about the relationship between mothers and their kids where mothers can do no wrong. I mean, they could be a complete abusive basket case. It's still your mom. Still love your mom. Your dad, they do anything, you know, anything's not perfect, and you're gonna go to counseling for it later, years later. But I did get such and such from my dad, and like, um, I mean, even the most perfect dad, like, I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of my observation from my experience and from all the dudes I'm friends with and their experience.
I mean, I grew up with a dad that um, like he was a recovering alcoholic. I mean, he wasn't. I never saw him touch alcohol one bit. He married a single woman that had already had two kids, two daughters, and then got married, and also became a Christian at the same time. And so like ton of imperfections, a ton of dysfunctionality. Um, and I mean, it's only by the grace of God that my dad stayed with my mom, and I can think back with some level of fondness uh, that my dad was available and that he was there. Um, Again, imperfections and all, but I think back to that. He showed up is I guess what I'm saying, and I think there's value in that.
Sure. I mean, just not leaving is saying something, even if they are imperfect and whatever. But um, yeah, so I mean, my take on this is obviously dads are valuable. They are uh, worth worthwhile, if you will. Using kind of the title of this episode. Um, I mean, I don't know what direction you want to take this. I mean, this could obviously spin off in all sorts of little sub episodes.
Sure. Yeah. I think I want it to be an encouragement more than anything to fathers, and even maybe I want it to be an encouragement to uh, soon to be fathers. I think that's also some of who we should be trying, like current fathers should be trying to educate and mentor soon to be fathers, because there's a lot of dads out there that you know, unfortunately, they're interested in having sex, but they were not interested in having kids. But now here they are having kids, and so I run into a lot of those kinds of stories, and so it's important for the men that are in the situation of like, hey, I don't really want to be a dad. I'm here because I'm a dad of a of a one night stand. But like the kids of those relationships, they need dads that are going to show up, and so I think it's important that those dads not just get like this giant sledgehammer upside the head, which I'm happy to give them because a lot of times they're knuckleheads. And
Mhm.
but we know that Christ loves them, and we know that Christ wants to communicate to them like, hey, you are worth a lot. Because we know, you and I both know that when we feel encouraged and when we feel like there's worth that's happening that we experience, that trickles down into our parenting. We'll end up having kind of a different, uh, maybe a different approach to our kids, especially when they're not being obedient.
Yeah.
We might be more patient with them, and so I think that being able to help dads understand that they're valuable, even new dads, even dads that don't want to be dads, could maybe in the long run decrease anxiety and depression in people and increase. I don't know. That's actually probably asking a bit much, but uh, anywho, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's that's some of the direction that I was thinking about when this topic was created.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just as you're talking here, excuse me, kind of that using that word worth. I was kind of thinking, value, and in the context of talking about fathers. The word identity was coming up,
Mm,
as kind of the natural progression of that, from value and worth and identity, because we all live out of our sense of identity. And if we didn't have a good father role model, the identity is probably going to be a little muddled. um, and within that, our sense of worth, our sense of value, whether or not we're bringing anything to the table, whether or not there's a sense of responsibility, um, or even it, or even feeling like maybe you're stuck, if you're coming from a sense of like, I didn't have a good dad, or I'm an accidental father, um, maybe feeling like that cycle is going to continue, or that there's no value in them because you're a sperm donor in a sense. um, but I don't think it has to end there. I don't think that, like, I think God has a bigger picture for that, whether it's uh, the most perfect situation, or wholeness of what a family and a father could be, or it's an accidental thing. Like, there's still an identity in that, as a man, as an image bearer of God, as a dad ultimately. I mean, like that. I don't think that value, worth, and identity is any different from the most upright of Christian and perfect dads to I'm here by accident. I don't really want to be here.
mm,
I
mm.
don't know. That's just kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, the identity thing is, I think that's really spot on. That hits the, I don't want to say proverbial nail on the head, but the proverbial nail on the head. Um, but I
Hopefully,
wonder what you.
hopefully it's encouraging. Like, there's hope, in that, no matter where you are, like the identity's the same.
I think it should be, and I think it could be, and I think that I absolutely do agree with that, and I think that it is encouraging. I mean, I receive it as encouraging. I hope that our listeners would as well. Um, as you were talking about identity, I had a thought come to mind that um, I'm wondering if you would agree with at all. But so the term identity, and even thinking about the concept of value, like as a dad, I'm valued. Um, I wonder if that's scary to to fathers. I wonder if that's a scary thing to think about, or an unsettling thing to think about. Maybe scary is kind of too. Yeah. What do you think?
It, I think it should be. I mean, it's. I remember being a new dad or prospects of it, and there's a weight to it, there's a heaviness to it, there's a responsibility, and if you don't feel that, you're probably not looking at it with the right lens. I mean, that's just my thought, but obviously it doesn't also mean that there's not fun and joy and whatever else, but I think the responsibility of fatherhood's huge.
Yeah, for
You know?
sure, for sure. But when you think about the term identity,
Mhm.
um, or even the term or the concept of value, is that an unsettling thing for you? Does that cause your mind to kind of, I don't know, like a computer short circuit a little bit?
Hmm. I have no response to that.
So
I
yes.
don't know. Yeah, maybe it's hard for me to kind of connect and yeah, I
What
don't
I'm
know how to
saying
answer
there,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so the reason why I was thinking about that is identity is such a broad topic.
sure.
It's it's not anything that you can nail down. It's such a subjective thing. Yet, but when we are Christians, and we talk about Imago Dei, being made in the image of God and His likeness, and having a lot of the attributes that God is, Himself has. We talk about this identity that is given to us, but that oftentimes feels like this really intangible thing. And so you kind of have like, what who am I in this world, and who am I to Christ? um, it seems very broad, and I know that at times I've wrestled with it, and I'm not saying that I have a great grasp on it now, but I was thinking, like, if a guy was to hear, if a dad was to hear, hey, you are worthwhile, and then ask the question, uh, what is your identity? I I think if I was a new dad, or a young Christian, or a young dad in Christian, I'd freeze up. I don't think I'd know what to say. I'd be like, I'm when did I become a dad? I became a dad at like 30. Uh I'm 30 years old, and I go to church. I think that's what I kind of say is some of my identity.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a whole sub episodes on identity. What's that mean? I mean, for me, when I think of identity, being a Christian, that because there's a lot of kind of in a worldly sense, a lot of identities. You're a father, your husband, your business owner, your worker, your whatever you are. Um, but for me, when I think about it, it's like it's that larger, like, who are you at your core? Like, your image bearer of God, put here on earth for God's purpose and will.
Mm,
What does that look like? Now it sounds kind of heavy and maybe ethereal, but to me, it's very practical. It's like, I'm here to provide for my family, here to love people that God that puts in my life. Um, my identity is wrapped up in those things primarily. Like, yes, I used to ride a motorcycle and drive a sports car and rock climb. And those are all cool identity things that worldly, how people tend to identify themselves or tend to rally around their tribe. But as a father, like, that's also a tribe and identity, and a pretty significant God-given one.
mm,
It's not just I enjoy the sport. Like, that's not necessarily a God ordained identity and role.
mm,
It's a hobby.
mm. Yeah, I like
I
that.
don't know.
You're making some good distinctions between, like, just things you enjoy that can be um, uh, markers of your identity, but not necessarily your identity. And so, like, things you enjoy versus things that you are.
Sure.
And so,
'Cause-
being a dad, being a Christian are definitely things you are. And I'm not, and you enjoy them as well, but they are definitely things you are first and foremost.
right. And they're inherent to who we are, and who God made us, as opposed to something I enjoyed doing.
Mm,
Um, and it's something that I'm reminded of. I mean, one of the biggest, I don't know, blessings to me that I didn't expect having a kid was how much of a reminder of my relationship with Jesus, and how I'm his son, and how
mm,
I don't know as much as I think I do, and I need to be dependent. I need to trust, because these are always things I'm preaching to my kid. When there's things that they, because it's very easy to trying to go off a tangent here. It's very easy to kind of harp on my son about obedience. Do what I say because it's easier for me. My life will be easier if you just listen.
Yeah.
But really, I'm not after the behavior change, even though that would be the easiest thing. And so I have to kind of stop and kind of use the old Mark Driscoll thing at the Mars Hill, because it works. It's talking about identity. It's not talking about behavior. It's
Mm.
I asked my son, who am I? You're my dad. Do I love you? Yes. Do I want the best for you? Yes. I'm asking you to do these things so that I can bless you, so I can teach you to be wise and you can have a good life. I'm not doing this because I want to torture you and keep you from good things. But that's really at the core of it. That's why we all rebel. That's why we all sin. We think God's holding out on us. And when my son sins and doesn't listen to me, he thinks I'm holding on him. He thinks that his idea is better for him than my idea. He'd
Mm.
much rather go run the road and rebel against the fence, but the fence is put there to protect him so he can have freedom within the yard, not freedom to go kill himself in the street.
Mm.
I don't know.
I didn't want to stop you, man. That was a good little mini sermon you had going there. That was a good role. I like that. Yeah, I don't. You said some really great things there. It's hard for me to really add more to that. I think everything that we're talking about here, the identity being a big piece is important to how we see value in ourselves as fathers, and ultimately that value we need to it needs to have some sort of foundation within Christ. We can't just rely upon positive psychology. You look within yourself and you communicate positive things to yourself, and like out of that, you're going to love yourself more, and that will be the answer to parenting better, and being a better dad. Some of what I think I talked about maybe last episode was, and we'll certainly get into the next episode, is the emotional spectrum, and men have a hard time showing the entire emotional spectrum, and so that's an important piece here in one, being made in the image of God, and being able to understand your identity and being able to experience value. You have to engage in the full emotional spectrum, beyond just one emotion, to I think be a full rounded father. There's probably more to that than just simply what I'm saying, but this is kind of broad strokes at the moment. At what time is it? 10 o'clock at night. So, and on day 8 of 7 of quarantine.
Dave, something of many. Yeah,
Day
I mean, kind of on closing of that. I mean, as you're kind of summarizing there, I was kind of thinking that I was kind of talking about how I saw my identity with my son and value and stuff. And like the thing that always gets me and always chokes me up is when I think about my relationship with God, is that this idea that like the maker of the universe finds value and
Mm,
joy in me.
mm,
Like I'm no one special. I don't deserve that, and it kind of relates to, my try to relate that to my son too. Is like, not, obviously I think he's special, but I don't love him because he listens or because he's talented or whatever. Like I love him because of his identity. He's my
mm.
son.
That's good.
Nothing's ever going to change that. And it's the same with us and God. And that's where the value comes from, is that relationship, not a behavior, not a, you listen to me or I'm unhappy with you or I'm happy with you. And so, you know, I value more or less based on those elements. I don't know.
No, that's a fantastic closing point, that God values us because of us, not because of what we do. So uh, I think we're called to obedience. I think we're called to worship God. I think those points need to be stated. But it, I used to feel that when I sin, God is far away, and when I obey, God is near. And really, what the Bible teaches is that God is the same and doesn't change, and like He's always close to you no matter what.
Mhm.
And Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Christian. I think fantastic point, and that is a good kind of conclusive point for this episode.
All right. Good stuff. Well, it was a good
Very, very good
conversation.
stuff.
A little tangential, but hopefully people got value out of it.
I hope so. I really hope if they got anything out of it beyond the name of the whiskey, I think that'll be a success.
There you go. Speaking of, do we have a little teaser for next week's whiskey?
Yes, next week's whiskey. I was thinking about it, and I'll let you choose. Um, we could continue to go the bourbon route, or we could take a trip kind of eastward to Scotland, Ireland, maybe, and have an Irish whiskey or a Scotch whiskey.
Okay. Well, I don't know the difference between Irish or Scotch whiskey, so let's go that route and you can educate me.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
All right, you guys can find us on Instagram and elsewhere.